Hello, and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where we go book by book through the vast collection of Dragonlance novels. With me, as always, is my good friend Shivam.
And with me, as always, is my good friend John.
And today we are doing chapter 9 of book 1 of Dragons of Spring Dawning and chapter 1 of book 2 of Dragons of Spring Dawning.
Yeah, this one didn't split out evenly, did it?
No, it didn't.
But these are really big and impactful chapters, so it's kind of sick, honestly.
It starts big, chapter 9, victory, so good news, I'm hoping.
First off, the chapter header art is awesome. It's by Larry Elmore. It's this cool looking blowout like schematic of how the greater Dragonlance would mount onto a dragon's saddle. And when you look at that, like as you're writing in, you're like, oh, we're getting a fight. And this chapter is really cool because it feels like it's the first dragon fight we get to see in these novels. And it feels a lot like writing a dog fight.
Oh, like a World War II dogfight, yeah.
Yeah, like World War I, not even World War II. World War I, like biplanes and triplanes tier dogfights. I was talking to my son the other day, and he's being into planes and stuff, and he's like, Papa, why do these old planes just like have open tops? There's no glass or anything on top of them. And I'm like, yeah, well, they hadn't figured out that you're supposed to put a lid on top of the pilot so he doesn't pop out.
There was no need. Like, they weren't going high enough or fast enough that you needed...
There are no air pressure problems to that. But like, yeah, so when you look at the way that they describe dragon flights and stuff, it really does feel like World War I era flights of biplanes and just kind of like going off in 2s and 3s, breaking off and having like dogfights. I miss that era of combat, not gonna lie. Like these days, jets launching missiles 6,000 miles away is really boring. Drones just bombing indiscriminately, not very fun. But at least dogfights felt personal and like you were up in the face and you could see that dude's mustache. Good times.
Let's do a quick summary. Chapter 8, the dragons came back. The good dragons came back, and we learned why they had been avoiding the fight.
Yep.
Chapter 9 just like immediately jumps from like chapter 8 ended with Laurana telling her brother to stop talking to her about Tanis. Right after he had told her, like, oh, the dragons are back. Here they are. We have silver, we have brass, we have gold. And chapter 9 starts with Flint and Tas trying to get on a bronze dragon.
Yeah.
They're mounting up.
They're going on the back of Kirsa, aka Fireflash. They're never explained to us why some dragons have like dragon names and human names, and some dragons only have human names and some dragons only have dragon names. We're never really given a clear answer of that. And in the 200X novels of Dragonlance, people just decide whatever they think sounds coolest.
I always figured they have both, and it's just, or it's like personal preference. Like, you know, some people say like, oh, your name's Shivam. And I'm sure at some point people said like, yeah, but what's your English name, Shivam? Right? It's a very common thing.
My English name is I'm going to stab you in the stomach is what it is.
No, yeah, but maybe that's just personal preference for dragons.
No, that's happened to me too. Like that when I was a kid, yeah. But it's also like I can see that being like not even like an English name versus the Draconic name, as much as like a code name, the way in like, you know, Top Gun or in the Navy or something. It's like, oh yeah, this is Colonel such and such, but his code name is Maverick, you know?
I also just wonder is maybe they can pronounce it, right? Like, it's like, oh, my name is a bunch of static and growls. And it's like, but you can't pronounce that. So I'm just going to
translate it.
You can call me Bob.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Goodness gracious.
That would be hilarious. A dragon named Bob.
You know, I'll bring that up to Margaret. She's like, yeah, you know what? He was named by a gnome that he hung out with. Tas is trying to hoist Flint into the chair of this dragon here. The saddle. The dragon is just like sitting there watching these two clowns just kind of like bop around here. And finally, Kirsa is like, you know what? Let me help you with this. Otherwise, we're literally never going to get around to doing this. And so he turns around and he goes, and he's like a young dragon as far as dragons go. So it's like maybe 4th or 5th generation dragon. I think Fireflash was born after the Second Dragon War, so wouldn't have like been with Huma or with the other people. So he's sitting there, and like all like age being relative, he's sitting there and he's got respect for the old man, the dwarf, even though because you know he's just lived a lot And so he looks at the dwarf and he speaks to him in Dwarven, honored and respected sire. And Flint is like, the horse is talking to me. I don't know what to do about this.
Also, he's showing way more respect than any of the people I normally hang out with show towards me.
Right? Flint is like, I beg your pardon. What the hell are you doing? Fireflash basically grabs Tasselhoff by the vest, plops him on the back of the dragon. He's like, look, putting you on me is going to shut you up. So please just stop trying to mess around, get on. And he was right. The kender was so in awe of actually being on a dragon. He stops like fussing and talking and stuff. The Fireflash basically sits there and gives them an explanation. And by relativity, explains it to us as well, the listeners, how you get on a dragon and how you mount a dragon that's on it.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
There's like a rolling track that has a shield mount, and the lance goes through the shield.
Yeah, so but the thing is, you can kind of picture it, because basically what it is like you've got this big shield in front of you, and it's almost like a square or rectangle that's on this track that goes left and right, and you're like in a turret. So if you imagine, I think like when I was a kid, the thing I was imagining was in Star Wars, when Luke Skywalker gets into the Millennium Falcon and goes into the gun turret, and he drops down and he can swing around in all the directions and shoot. The same way, this shield is on this track that can curves a little bit around in front of the...
Maybe 180 degrees, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like a U shape.
Yeah.
And it sits in front of the knight who's on top of the dragon. And he's got the lance, which is on a pivot. So there's this pivot that's attached to the saddle. The lance is mounted on top of it, going through the hole in the shield. And that way, the pilot can use it to kind of angle it in this 180 degrees to aim to where you need to go. And because the thing is like 20 or 30 feet long, you can like go pretty far outside of the radius of the dragon, but the dragon's still got to get up and close enough for you to be able to puncture the other dragon in the face. But they've got like breath weapons and claws and stuff too. It's a really cool and kind of, I mean, like, I really like the fact that they sat there and thought about, well, how does this work? Right? They went and they took the idea of what does a mounted horseman with a lance look like? Now, how would you take that and transfer to a dragon where you've got 360 degrees of motion? You've got the whole, you're moving in 3 dimensions instead of just 2. And how do they do this? And, you know, Larry Elmore went and sat down and designed a whole schematic to explain how this pivot might work and how this thing would be able to actually be a physical, reasonable thing. And that kind of veracity makes it so much more believable than otherwise. Like, you could believe that a dude gets on a dragon with a long stick and spears other dragons, even though it's like, why would that make sense? Why wouldn't you just breathe on the other guy, right? But it's cool. It's really sick.
This chapter is just full of like the details.
Yeah.
The sections we're going to read here, they talk a lot about just how it's mounted onto the dragon, how the lance is separable, right? Like, say, once you've skewered another dragon, there's like a release. And the events in this episode today are going to talk a lot about just the details of how all of this works.
So there's 2 upsides here. One is that you can tell the authors were really excited about how they made this work and wanted to share this detail with you. But the other thing is, you got to remember, the game players who are reading this book and following this story are like, oh, that's how dragon battles work. So when they get to that module or they get to that part of the adventure, they know how to do this, because like the rules for dragonback fighting sort of kind of existed. But Dragonlance was the first real setting where you got the active hand in trying to do dragon battles. There's a huge chunk of the rules in like DL11 and in like later Dragonlance books and modules which talk about what dragonback combat is like. Because Dungeons and Dragons before, the dragons were your enemies. They weren't necessarily your mounts. Being able to do that, people are like, that's the coolest thing in the world. Why wouldn't I want to ride on a dragon? Like, there was an NES game called Dragon Strike, which was a Dragonlance game where you're literally...
It's Gradius.
Yeah, it's Gradius, but with dragons.
Yeah, and then the computer version is like a flight simulator, but with dragons. So you see it from like a first-person point of view. That game is super hard.
I haven't played that one. I've played the NES one.
The one for PC is like a flight simulator.
Oh, that's crazy.
You have to point your little primitive-looking 3D polygonals and chase dragons. It's very difficult.
Man, why hasn't anybody done it? Like, I want a modern dragon flying sim. I think that would be super fun.
The closest thing is, I think, well, modern. It's not even modern, but like Panzer Dragoon. was kind of like, but that was a shooting one, right? 3D shooter on rails. But it's the thing I can think of closest to.
Yeah, probably something like that. Even a rail shooter with dragons would be super fun. Here's what the Firefly says. She's like, "Now, Tasslev Burfoot," said the dragon, "you were trying to boost your master up into the saddle backwards. The correct position is the one you are in now. The metal lance mounting must be on the front right side of the rider, sitting squarely forward by my right wing joint and above my right foreshoulder. Do you see?" "Yes, I see," called Taz in high excitement. "The shield, which you see on the ground, will protect you from most forms of dragon breath." So that's another thing that's really cool is like, okay, so this shield is going to protect you from, I guess, direct shots of lightning bolts or fire or
desert heat.
What were the enemy chromatic dragon weapons? Red had fire, blue had lightning, black had acid, white had frost, and green had had like poison gas. So like the shield's not going to protect you from poison gas, but it'll probably protect you direct hits of acid or lightning or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Flint is like, "What the hell do you mean most forms? I am not here for most forms. How do I fly and hold a shield and a lance and a whole thing?" And Tad's like, "I thought you'd done this before, Sir Flint." But yeah, so they mount the shield. They figure out how to do it. They thrust the tip of the lance through the hole. Laurana, basically what we've been told here, before we even get to this part, is that Laurana is now the Golden General. That's the name they've been given her because she's got long blonde hair streaming out of the back of her helmet. And that's an interesting side note here, which is like when we first introduced to Laurana,
her skin color is golden.
Her skin color changed to white.
Oh.
Because check this out. Remember in Autumn Twilight, when we meet her, her skin is like the nut brown wooden skin. Like she's a wood elf. She looks like a wood elf. And then Larry Elmore draws her on the cover of Winter Night and like in all the other artists as like this girl with strawberry blonde hair who's like, you know,
pale,
hyper Nordic Viking looking woman. The authors are very, very much influenced by the artwork here. So because like real talk, the art was amazing. So it would be hard not to look at this and say like, no, you got that wrong. You're like, oh, damn, that's hot. And so Laurana morphs very quickly to go from what she was in the beginning to being this chick who looks like she came out of How to Train Your Dragon.
This is the prequels to How You Train Your Dragon, Dragonlance. The first How to Train Your Dragon. Basically, they train themselves.
The thing that we're told that's very interesting here is that Laurana and the good dragons, it's been a few weeks since the dragons showed up in the last episode. And in that time, she has taken the armies and gone out on like strikes and on lightning raids to go and attack the Dark Queen. And in doing so, she's raised the morale of the army, increased the like number of conscripts for the actual foot soldiers. She's taught the knights how to fight on dragonback, which these guys are all horse riders. So they're figuring it out. And there's like some of these great campaigns, like the Vingard campaign, which is a really good example of how this worked, where they went and attacked a camp and used the silver dragons to freeze a river and then the bronze dragons to melt it when the dragon armies came and crossed over to flood them out. Doug Niles writes an incredibly good short story explaining a lot of the Golden General's like early campaigns to explain why she was such a tactical genius. Because it turns out Laurana is not just like a diplomat. She's actually one of the great military minds on Krynn, and not even like on purpose, just incidentally, she's got a head for strategy, and she's got a head to understand and listen to her soldiers and know how to fight. And that is really, really cool.
It also probably helps that some of these dragons are from thousands of years ago.
Right.
So they have a bunch of strategy. They can tell you, hey, here's how Huma used the silver dragons in the Third Dragon War. I get the feeling maybe the red dragons and the blue dragons don't have that kind of congenial, good relationship with the Dragon High Lords. They kind of put up with, it's like, I'm only doing this because Takesis tells me to do this. I'm not really here to help you out and figure things out.
The red dragons did that because the red dragons are definitely egotistical and in control, but the blue dragons were very much in the regimented lawful section, and they were all about like, we're going to do this correctly. And that's why like Kitiara's army is the one that's generally speaking the strongest, because the fact that her dragons know how to work with her soldiers the best.
Oh, because they're lawful evil.
Yeah, and we see this in like multiple different stories going forward where it's like The green dragons are too fickle and moody to work with. The white dragons are too dumb. The black dragons don't care very much. The red dragons are like, I'm just going to burn indiscriminately. But the blue dragons are like, yeah, we're going to go destroy people. And that's what's going to happen. In this story, we've got this like notion here. Like everybody thinks like, oh yeah, we're winning and we're super winning. And Laurana's like, nah, dude, we haven't actually fought anybody yet with dragons. We have to do the actual like dog fights now. And that's going to get real.
That's what this is about. She's like, they've yet to face any dragons until now. Blues and reds had been sighted, heading toward Laurana's army. So now the Dragon High Lords are taking her seriously enough that no more messing around. We're just going to... 2 types of dragons, our blues and our reds. Those are the 2 biggest types too, aren't they?
Yes, relatively speaking.
It's time to nip this problem in the bud. We're going to get rid of this golden general and show the good people of...
Yeah, they're like, look, we have fiddled-faddled around, but now we're here to vaporize you, and this is going to happen. And so they go. We've got Laurana riding on the Great Silver Dragon, so she's riding on Silvara's back. That in itself is like, deeply symbolic because like Huma rode on the Silver Dragon. So Laurana riding on the Silver Dragon in front of the Knights is also just one of those turbo mega like, ooh moments for them.
I wonder why golden dragons don't show up that much.
That's a good question. They show up in short stories. They show up in like, Fizzband writing one, whatever. But in the stories, when Margaret and Tracy are writing, they prefer to write about silver and bronze dragons almost exclusively. There's one copper dragon that shows up in the new trilogy, and that's because I asked them to please use a different goddamn dragon. My personal favorite Dragonlance story, Darkness and Light, which is non-canonical history of Sturm and Kiriara going to Lunatari. There's a really good brass dragon in that story. And the Gully Dwarves has a green dragon named Verdant Leaf Glow, who's maybe my favorite character in the whole saga. But that being notwithstanding, yeah, we have like silver dragons, again, for the same reason the blues, they're the regimented lawful ones. The gold ones know how to party and play along, but like they're not as interesting, I guess, because the silver dragon's got story weight already.
Okay.
Because it's human silver dragon, so we want the poetic balance here. And Flint and Taz riding on a bronze dragon is because these 2 guys are not going to get the gold or silver dragons.
No.
They're just here. They're lucky they get anything.
Even the bronze dragon is too big for them.
But yeah, so we see this. The good dragons and the knights who rode them were gathered on the rolling foothills east of the Vingard Mountains. Here, the chill winter winds had given way to warm breezes from the north, melting the frost on the ground. The rich smell of growth and renewal perfumed the air as the dragons rose in flashing arcs to take their place in formation. It was a sight that took the breath away. Tasslev knew that he would remember it forever, maybe even beyond that. Bronze and silver, brass and copper wings flared in the morning light. The greater dragonlances mounted on the saddles glittered in the sun. The knight's armor shone brilliantly. The kingfisher flag with its gold thread sparkled against a blue sky. The past few weeks had been glorious. As Flint said, it seemed the tide of war was finally flowing in the direction. Yeah, man, look, all 5 flights of dragons are here. Laurana's riding on Silvara because she's got a relationship with Silvara. Taz and Flint are riding on Fireflash because they are giving the good dragons to the good knights. And these guys get to have one of the young bronzes to kind of go through it. Like all 5 are there. They all use them as part of like this combat here. They've all been training on how to fight with these things.
This is so good. The armies on the ground engage. The evil dragons show up and start harassing. And then the good dragons show up and they break up into like small squadrons
Of 2 or 3.
And it just says that like the knights riding them try to take control. Like they're trying to steer these dragons. And it's just like, no, I am not a horse. I am a dragon. I am a fully sentient being.
Exactly.
I will do what is best here. So I'm going this way.
Kirsa like sees them and moves into basically attack formation, right? Like though you can see the X-wings, the wing foils come out and go into X mode and they start breaking off. And you know that these guys had very much had the Death Star run on mind when they're writing this. Taz is looking down and he sees like all the soldiers and then he's like, oh man, we got to stop them. Oof. Kirsa wheeled so suddenly that Taz was nearly swallowed his tongue. The sky flipped over on its side, and for an instant, the kender had the most interesting sensation of falling up. More by instinct than conscious thought, Taz grabbed hold of Flint's belt, remembering suddenly that he was supposed to have strapped himself in as Flint had done. Well, he would do so next time. If there was a next time. The wind roared around him. The ground spun below him as the dragon spiraled downwards. Kender were fond of new experiences, and this was certainly one of the most exciting, but Tas did wish the ground wasn't rushing up to meet them quite so fast. I didn't mean we had to stop them right now, Tas shouted to Flint. Glancing up or down, he could see the other dragons far above, no, below them. Things were getting all muddled. Now the dragons were behind them. They were out here in front, alone. What was Flint doing? Not so fast. Slow the thing down, he yelled at Flint. You got ahead of everybody, even Laurana. The dwarf would have liked nothing better than to slow the dragon down. The last swoop had tossed the reins within his reach, and now he was tugging with all his might, shouting, "Whoa, beast, whoa!" Which he dimly remembered was supposed to work with horses, but it wasn't working with the dragon. It was no comfort to the terrified dwarf to notice that he wasn't the only one having trouble managing the dragons. Behind him, the delicate lines of bronze and silver broke as if by some silent signal, and the dragons veered off into small groups, flights of 2 and 3. Frantically, the knights jerked on the reins, endeavoring to pull the dragons back in a straight and orderly cavalry rows. But the dragons knew better. The sky was their domain. Fighting in the air was far different from fighting on the ground. They would show these horse riders how to fight on dragonback.
All this training that they did, and it's just like, yeah, I'm not a horse, but
all you need to do is point the lance where I tell you to.
Uh-huh.
I will handle the rest. And these guys are like, what the hell? This is one of my absolute favorite chapters in this book, just because the dragon fight is so sick. It's like, look at this. They're just, you can feel the whooshing. Tas is sitting there on dragonback, and he's staring down at the world like he's never seen it before. And he's like, this is the greatest map I've ever seen in my life. Like, you can see him looking down like a Dynasty Warrior style, like, scale with all the armies moving here and there.
Yeah, there's a part where he says, like, oh, he wants to draw a map. And it's just like, there's no time to draw a map, buddy. You're in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, and you're not wearing your seatbelt, so we're going to have a problem. And so suddenly, Fireflash dashes down and sees a blue dragon, and they're diving straight into it. So it feels like in Macross or in like X-Wings or something, you see a group of TIE fighters who don't see you coming, you're flying down, and you're breaking at them from a top angle. Flint is like terrified, and he doesn't know what the hell's going on. And so he grabs the lance. He doesn't have time to properly adjust it, but they miss. So it doesn't matter, and he can reset himself. Fireflash sits there and like strikes the lead dragon with all 4 of his claws, bites at the head of the thing, and just starts like messing with it. And Flint's in his harness. Tas is grabbing on tightly. They're like slamming into the dragon. Tas is excited, and Flint's like, oh God, what the hell is going on?
And the lance is in the dragon. It's not like in its heart. It's like stuck in its muscle of its wing or something.
Yeah, basically, they like Fireflash flies back, swings forward again, and stabs into the dragon. They go like this time, like, you know, lightning is like flying at them. Their breath weapons are coming. These guys are ducking behind the shield, and like they slam headfirst into this thing. The dragon breathes on them, which is why Fireflash got like knocked off course, because like he got hit by lightning directly. And in doing so, the dragonlance spears the victim, right? Like, you're right. It doesn't hit directly head on.
It's a glancing blow. It's not a death blow.
No, it's like it nails him in the shoulder, though.
Yeah.
And the problem is, just like when you're like fishing or something and your hook gets caught in a bone, or you're like, hunting with a bow and arrow or something, and like, or a spear, and you, instead of going cleanly in and out in the muscle and whatever, they like basically hooked into the bone of this dragon. The lance they've been going so fast that the lance basically slammed into the dragon bone, which is not a weak item, right? Like, we're talking, these are real strong materials, and bent. And so it jabs in and bends and lodges tight. Now the blue is trying to like yank free, and Kirsa is trying to yank free, and these guys are like stuck with each other.
Basically, imagine 2 cats fighting each other, but in the middle of the sky, rolling around, tumbling as they're trying to disengage and beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah, exactly.
With humans strapped to the back of them.
Right? The rider of the blue dragon, though, is not just sitting down and taking this like NBD. Like, he jumps up and he grabs his sword and he's climbing on the back of the dragon while these two are mid-flight fighting each other. Mind you, they're probably even flighting and falling even, because they're not like able to really propel themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the wing of the dragon, the blue dragon's wing is jacked in the dragon lance in the shoulder, so he can pump one of his wings, and Kirsa is probably pumping both of his wings, but they're spiraling. They're like, in real close quarters combat here.
This would be an intense action sequence in a movie.
Oh, this would be so sick. You can picture the whole thing. Like the dragon rider gets up and he's got his sword out and he's on all fours, basically kind of climbing up the head of his dragon to jump over to the bronze dragon, because he's like, okay, fine, you guys are gonna screw with me. We're going to end this the other way by getting rid of this riders over here. His helmet whips off, and you see that this dude's a blonde-haired white guy with cold, bright blue eyes staring at him. Taz's like, huh, he looks familiar. He doesn't know necessarily why, but like, images of Sturm and the other knights pop into his head and he's like, I wonder what's going on. But the dragon rider frees himself from his harness, steps up in the stirrups, he grabs his sword, and he starts trying to saw away at the harness that is holding Taz and Flint to the dragon.
Yeah. Flint is like stun locked. Taz has been telling him this entire time,
let go.
Flint, you need to disengage, pull the release on the lance. And Flint is he's like in a stupor. Taz decides, well, if the dragon guy, if the High Lord can do it, I can do it. He wraps the reins around himself and he crawls out of the thing, and then he jumps on top of the High Lord.
Well, not a High Lord, just a rider.
Oh, just a rider, and covers his eyes. So
yeah.
Now there's a man standing on a dragon with a kender on his back, covering his eyes.
I don't know how Taz has not fallen to his death.
Well, he has the reins tied around him, so even if he falls, he would just be attached to wherever the reins of Fire Flash. So the guy drops his sword, and now he's trying to get Taz off of his back, and Taz is still screaming at Flint to let go, let go. Flint finally wakes up, releases the lance. The two dragons separate. This blue dragon flees, right? He's damaged. He's got a bad wing. Fireflash is torn up. He's got blood all over his face, right? He took a couple straight hits to the face of lightning.
Yeah, because remember, the blue dragon definitely also has 4 claws and teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, like he's not just like sitting here like getting himself stabbed and having fun. He's also like giving as well as he got and trying to shred the wings of the other guy.
They land and Taz is on cloud 9. He's like, I fought dragons. We have a prisoner.
But he's also like terrified, not for himself, but for his friends.
Yeah.
And he's like sobbing. He's like, oh my God, Flint almost died. It's like, yeah, you almost died too, Taz. But yeah, that's fine. He grabbed this prisoner. I'm surprised that like the prisoner didn't just take Taz and huck him off the dragon.
Yeah.
I don't know how they managed to land with this guy.
I guess he didn't want to die.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fireflash at any time probably could have just reached back and plucked him off of him. So it's basically like you're stuck on a dragon.
And we're told that like one of the arms of this guy is already busted up.
This is the commander that Kitiara was sleeping with, the same one who brought back the bodies of Derek or that's what I assumed. He has an injured arm. It's the who got shot and was blonde and cold. I forgot his name, but yeah, this is the same guy who delivered the bodies of Derek and Alfred and mocked them, and it's the same one that Laurana shot with a bow. Yeah.
Because we see him, we learn this because the officer is staring at Laurana with a fixed stare, and it's just like, oh, ooh, okay, bad. The chapter ends, though. Flint is like having a real miserable time. He's obviously airsick. He's obviously shooken up and has like the impact of the dragonlances stunned him. But he's holding onto his chest, and Tad's like, what's going on, man? Like, why are you holding your chest? Flint's like, oh yeah, man, this lance, it drove right into my collarbone. I'm going to be black and blue, blah, blah, blah. And then later on that night, Tad's thinking about it, and he's like, huh, Flint was clutching the left side of his chest, but the lance was on his right. Basically what happened, because like when you sit there you read back the scene, Flint is like stunned and staring and unable to move. And I think he literally either had a minor stroke or a heart attack while he was up there just from the excitement of being on Dragonback.
I don't think this is the first time. I think this is like his second stroke.
Oh yeah. Or multiple even, because he's getting older. We're told early on that his parents had a weak heart and his weak heart's run in his family. So yeah, he's definitely like looking a little gray and gnarly and feeling definitely all of his 248 years of age.
Yeah.
Or 148 years of age, something like that.
He's getting up there in dwarf years.
Yeah.
And I think the book is telling us that
to pay attention. that is the end of book 1 of Dragons of Spring Dawning, where we end here after a victorious dragon battle.
Our first Dragonlance battle, our first good dragon battle. The first battle scene, I think, in the entire book, outside of like some minor skirmishes, this is the first one we've been part of, it feels like. Because before, the battle that happened at the High Cleric's Tower happened away, right? Sturm and Laurana were waiting. It happened away. And then there wasn't, the High Cleric's Tower was just 3 dragons attacking the tower, and 2 of them getting eliminated by the dragon orb. So this is the first like full-scale battle I think the book has described. The characters are in it, experiencing it.
Yes.
And it's a big one.
It's awesome.
It's the first time there could be a battle because it's the first time the good guys have
dragons.
Yeah. Every time before, it was like, oh, it doesn't matter if you have an army. I have.
Yeah, we're just getting bombing raided. Artillery in the skies is a good way to call it. I'm sad that it took them this long to get to a really good dragon fight, but like I get it. You have to set it up and you have a long way to go. And it's funny for a series called Dragonlance, not a lot of dragons, not a lot of lances, but here we are finally with dragons and lances. Let's go.
The first whole book was about the return of the gods, and the second book was kind of about the slump and setting up everything that's happening here. But here we are. Golden General, she has her name that she's famous for, good dragons, and a battle. So what a great way to end the first book in Dragons of Spring Dawning. Before we get to chapter 10, I want to thank you all so much for being a listener. If you'd like to support the podcast, please give us a positive review on your podcatcher of choice, and you can contribute at our Patreon page. Benefits include seeing the show notes, getting a shout out, as well as joining the Discord and our Facebook groups. Details can be found at www.patreon.com/Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. And as I said, one of those benefits is a shout out for our $5 and above patrons. So we have Alexander Louis, Nicholas Campo, Swardango, Chris and Drew, Jason Bledsoe, John Merlino Jr., Jane Newolf, Andrew Arsenal, Todd Fisher, Iskinder Bilge, Matthew Williams, Kevin Don, Eric Schold, Parish Patel, Robert Fisher, Tom Bertram, Scott Williams, The Nine Duncan, Ilya Tulloch, Adam Squires, Diana D., Jamie Gerber, Fiend Folio, Randy Burns, Kate Roy, Lord's Thoth, and Glenn Maloney. Thank you all so much. We couldn't do this without you. It's your support that allows us to have the materials and the hosting, the resources to keep doing this. So thank you so much.
And now we move into book 2, chapter 1, which is Dragons of Spring Dawning. The chapter itself is finally called Spring Dawning. Because Spring Dawning is the festival in Kalamn, the city that they're in right now, that they just freed in this climactic battle, because that's what they're doing. To map this out, they started in Palanthas, and the Golden General has been running out into the plains of Solamnia and trying to win back the territory that was taken by Kitiara. And so she's been slowly going fort to fort, castle to castle, using air troops and ground troops to try to reclaim the land. Like when they had been pushed all the way back to the High Cleric's Tower, and now they're fighting all the way, pushing back to try to re-get all this territory. Because now they have dragons and they've got supplies of Palanthas, and the knights have started showing up more. They're able to go all the way to Kalamn, which is one of the big cities on the northern coast of Solamnia. It's far from Palanthas, but it's also like a big deal.
This was the city that Tanis and company were trying to get to on the Parachon before they were sunk in the Blood Sea.
Yes. Kalamn is basically the northern port. If Palanthas is to the far west of Solamnia, Kalamn is like its easternmost border, because it borders alongside Clomish and like Estwild and the weird swampy territory, which is all the goblins and orcs and ogres and things. But it's a big major port city. So they go and they fly forward. We sit there and we're giving a bit of a description about the Spring Dawning Festival, how everybody is now super excited to be out of the winter. They're having a good time, like colors and lights, and kids are running around. And there's a big parade of all the heroes have come in, with the elf maiden riding on a white horse, leading an army of 75 Solamnic knights, and everybody's just like cheering and celebrating.
The dragons are flying overhead in formation. Imagine a military parade. That's what we got.
Exactly. Like a military parade on like the 4th of July or something like that,
Yeah.
where everybody's really happy to see them. We see that some of the knights, though, are like looking at each other a little bit darkly because they're like, look, man, if we had been here a month ago, this parade would have them throwing tomatoes and eggs and like chicken poo at us, right? Like,
yeah, we're reminded that the cataclysm also caused the fall of the prestige of the Knights of Solamnia.
Yeah, they like hated them. They super hated them.
They got blamed, right? The Knights got blamed when the world went south and they didn't have answers. And it's like, wait, you guys are supposed to be
You're the lords that we've been giving our money to. What are you doing? Hey, the insurance companies failed us, you know? But now, of course, when you've been freed and liberated, suddenly it's a different story entirely. And everybody is cheering and celebrating and like having a grand old time. Laurana gets to the top there and she's looking out at this crowd. And she's standing next to Lord Michael, who is Gunther's like his representative from like Sancris. She's like, I hate this. Like, it's not true. He's like, look, dude, let them have a hero. They've been in misery. They've been in winter. They're waiting for a beautiful woman who rides out of children's sails who saves them. And she's like, yeah, but it's not true. I drove out of fire and darkness and blood. Nobody liked me. Nobody wanted to help me. I'm doing this like out of desperation. And if my brother and Silvara hadn't brought the dragons back, we'd all be dead. And Michael's like, yeah, but that didn't happen.
Yeah. She's dealing with some imposter syndrome and having troubles recognizing that people need heroes, and that's the role she has to play.
Right. Part of it's imposter syndrome, but part of it also feels like survivor's guilt.
Yeah, it's a good point.
She lived through the High Clerist's Tower. Why does she get to celebrate when Sturm is dead, or when all of these knights are dead, or when all of this like trauma has happened? Why is she being fated as the hero? She's just the one who managed to not die. That's all.
Yeah, there's this quote here. She would have to sit here the rest of the afternoon, smiling and waving and enduring speech after speech, praising her heroism, when all she wanted was to lie down in some dark, cool place and sleep. And it was all a lie, a sham. If only they knew the truth. What if she stood up and told them she was so frightened during the battles that she could remember details only in her nightmares? Told them that she was nothing but a game piece of the knights? Told them that she was here only because she had run away from home, a spoiled little girl chasing after a half-elven man who didn't love her. I mean, she's being really hard on herself. Like, she says, I'm only a game piece of the knights. Gunther's not the one leading the battles. He's not the one planning the strategies. She's doing that.
Yeah.
She's the one who has. Being a hero is not because you're not scared. Being a hero is because you are scared and you do the thing anyway. That is what she has done time and time again, is she is scared and she does the thing anyway.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what makes her the hero, right? Like,
oh, I'm just a scared, frightened person. And it's like, well, yeah, that's why you're a hero.
That's why you're relatable. That's why you're amazing, right? Michael's also like, this is really good for us. The knights are suddenly loved. These guys wouldn't have given us moldy crust of bread yesterday. And now they're giving us garrisons and men and supplies.
Yeah, their people want to sign up to become knights.
Yeah, it's great. She sits there. The Lord of Kalamn comes out and gives her this big old, like, honking introduction of, like, this woman whose name will now be said alongside Huma's, blah, 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 blah. Laurana is like, these roses in my hand are cloying. I'm passing out. But then she stands up, sighs, and gives a speech to the people who expect it, because she has been trained as a royal to know how to handle this sort of thing, to how to handle PR when you don't want to do the PR. You still got to do it.
Yeah.
Her training comes in handy.
Just like she doesn't like the battles and she's frightened, she still does them. She still has to do the talk and she does it.
Yeah.
But you know who's not into the talk? Tas. He gets bored and he decides to wander off.
Well, I mean, it's like whatever, speeches, he gets it. It's not even that he's bored. He's just like, look, there's a festival. I'm going to go explore the festival. And he pops into a map stall. It's like, I want to compare notes or whatever. And he's picking locks and just ambiently getting purses and stuff. And a weird cleric who is completely wrapped up limb to limb shows up.
Where have we seen this before?
Taz is like, I beg your pardon. And the guy's like, Barefoot, the kender who rides with the Golden General. And Taz like, why, yes, that is me. I've known her for quite some time. And he's like, yeah, shut up. I don't care.
Well, he picks him up by his collar and says, I have a message for Laurana. And you have to deliver it to her when she's alone. And then he tucks something into one of Taz's pockets.
Mm-hmm.
He drops him and disappears, and by the time Taz picks himself up and dusts himself off, he can't see the guy. But he does think, wait, I think that was a Draconian.
Yeah, and I'm like, Taz, how do you not know? You've seen this exact these guys are not new. This is not clever. But yeah, so Taz finally gets around to it and he's like, oh, that's weird. And then he looks at the note. And then afterwards, Laurana, after all of her speeches and wine drinking and everything, she is drunk and she is upset and tired. She goes back to her room. She's about to go to sleep. Tas and Flint knock on the door and come inside, and she's like, go away, come back in the morning. She's like, no, this is a big deal, important. They give her the note that the Draconian gave to Taz. They read it. It's from Kit.
Taz has already read it. She's like, do I need to read this to you? And Taz is like, no, I already read it. I already know. And then that's why it was so important. And then Flint reads it.
Yeah. Basically, it's a note from Kit that's like, Tanis received a wound in the Battle of Vingard Keep. Although he first believed it was slight, it has worsened and is past the help of even the dark clerics. I've ordered that he be brought to Dargard Keep, where I could care for him. Tanis knows the gravity of his injury. He asks that he be allowed to be with you when he dies. He may explain matters to you and so rest with an easy spirit. I make you this offer. You have as your captive my officer Baccharis, who is captured near Vingard Keep. I will exchange Tanis of Elven for Baccharis. The exchange will take place at dawn tomorrow in a grove of trees beyond the city wall. Bring him with you. If you're mistrustful, you may also bring Tanis and friends, Flint and Taz, but no one else. The bearer of this note waits outside the city gate. Meet him tomorrow at sunrise. If he deems all is well, he'll escort you to the half-elf. If not, you will never see Tanis alive. I do this only because we are two women who understand each other. This is so obviously a trap.
Yeah. And it's just because she falls for it. We're going to talk about that more. But it's after everything that happened in the last two chapters where she makes the decision that she, I have to stop chasing Tanis. He's gone. He's dark. And when Gelthanis comes to her and says, I heard this when we were finding the eggs, Tanis has been promoted. And she said, I don't care. Like, after all that growth, this comes up and Taz and Flint are like, this is the fakest thing. Tanis was not injured. The letter's a trick. And Laurana's like, it doesn't matter. I have to do it.
And they're like, Tanis would never go with her. She's a liar. And then she explains to him, like, no, wait,
She talks about the dream again, the dream in Sylvanestri, how she saw Kit and Tanis together.
Yeah. Flint's like, now, wait a minute, Flint said gruffly, grabbing hold of reality as a drowning man grabs a piece of wood. You said yourself that you saw your own death in the dream right after Sturm's, and you didn't die, and nothing hacked up Sturm's body either. I didn't die yet like I did in the dream, Taz said helpfully, and I picked lots of locks. Well, not lots, but none were poisoned. Besides, Laurana, Tanis wouldn't. Laurana's like, yes, you would. You both know it. He loves her. I'm going, I'll exchange Baccharis. I'm like, oh, what are you doing, Laurana? No, don't.
Yeah.
Flint's like, you can't do it. You're the leader of an army. There's protocols and things. And Laurana's like, I never asked for any of this crap. I didn't want it, and we'll make it look like Baccharis escaped. Tad's like, dude, he's the guy who brought back the dead bodies. What are you thinking? We can't do this. And Laurana's like, I'm not discussing anything. I'm the general, and this is my decision.
And she's like, Tanis would do the same regardless if it was a trap or not. And I was like, I don't know, would Tanis?
Maybe you should ask someone's advice. And Laurana's like, who? Gilthanis? What's he going to say? That we exchanged lovers? No, screw that. Flint desperately looking, he's like, you were in your father's court long enough. You should know better. And she's like, I'm no longer in my father's court. And the abyssal protocol. Screw you, screw this, and screw everything. I'm going to go.
It seems somewhat out of character.
Here's the thing. There are two notes I want to read here from the Annotated Chronicles. One is from Margaret and one's from Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
And they agree that you're exactly right. This is like after we've had all this buildup of her becoming an independent, strong, powerful woman who's like, you know what? I don't need him and screw this. And like, I don't need to throw all this away just because of a very blatantly fake note that's going to screw me. Here's what Margaret says. This scene precipitated the first disagreement between Tracy and I while writing these books. The plot had been designed from the beginning to have Laurana give up her generalship to go chasing after Tanis. By the time we came to write this part, I did not believe that Laurana, as I knew her, would give up her generalship, in effect leave her troops in a lurch to go save her fickle lover. Tracy, the romantic, maintained that love conquers all and that she would. Because she had to do this in order for the plot to work, I gave in. But it was difficult writing this scene and providing her with a convincing motivation that didn't make her sound like a lovesick ninny. By the way, Tracy has since come to agree with me. And then Tracy writes his own paragraph to explain here. Tas and Flint are like, we'll come with you then. But like, what if it's a trap? What if it's an ambush? And Laurana's like, I'm not saying crap. Tracy says, yes, Laurana is acting as a non-lovesick ninny here. Indeed, I do agree with Margaret now. As I look back, my initial understanding of the character and her motivations were centered around rather adolescent images rather than mature ones. In the book as it stands, Laurana's motivations are questionable and irrational. While I remain an incurable romantic, I believe that Laurana's choice here makes her more of a victim than a leader, and women shouldn't be victims. Love may conquer a good many things, but abusive relationships are not among them.
Oh,
damn. It's really good that these guys sit and with hindsight have recognized the situation that they're putting these characters into.
But and it just doesn't fit. Like they had to do it for this story and they had like outlined it that way. And then by the time they got there, they're like, well, the book has to be published in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So
we need Laurana to get captured in order for X, Y, and Z thing to happen.
Yeah.
It just throws away like years of character building, right? Like all of this just like growth that she's had. And suddenly look, if I was going to think about this in story, how to justify this, the way I would look at it is that Laurana is currently under a ton of pressure. She has just fought an incredible battle. She's had to deal with all these speeches, all this imposter syndrome, all this everything. And she is not at her emotional strength, right? She is fully in a weakened position right now. And when this note drops and she's like, you don't believe this? And they're like, no, absolutely not. And she's like, I've seen Kit. I know what she can do. I totally believe this. And she knows, she believes that Tanis is there. She believes all these things. So she's already inclined, but she's not in her right mind. She's like drunk. And she's like addled and exhausted. So she's just like making an impetuous decision based on her like inner id and not on her like growth that she has done. I mean, really, the realistic story should be she woke up and in the cold light of day was like, that's a dumb idea.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
I was thinking the way you could do it is because he gives them the note and says, don't let anyone open it but Laurana. Maybe Tas could have actually not opened it. And then she would have opened it and like it could have had some sort of poison on it to make her fall asleep. And then they would have kidnapped her. That's how I thought maybe you could get away with it. Or the Draconian could have straight up taken Tas and then that could have led somehow to them looking for Tas and then getting kidnapped by Draconians.
Yeah.
It would have done it without making Laurana's character do this real flip-flop. But at the very end, Laurana says, like, I don't want you guys to come. I'm going to go by myself. And Flint and Tas, like, put their foot down and they're like, absolutely not. You might go against our best wishes, but there's no way we're letting you go alone to see Kit.
Yeah.
She tries to stop them and they won't listen. And that's how the chapter ends, kind of on this downer after we've had these ups, is that we know that Laurana and Flint and Tas are walking into a trap.
Right. But I mean, they also have to, because look, this is setting up now the new conflict for this second section of the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got to find a way to bring these two factions back together again. Tanis and friends who are somewhere in the Blood Sea and these heroes. And we need to figure out how to reconcile and bring all these different story threads to a landing. And this is going to put us on that path. When I was a kid, I totally bought it because I didn't have any context or understanding of how things work. I was just like, what? Of course you got to go save Tanis. Why wouldn't you? And now I'm like, you're the general. Send a dude.
Yeah.
You don't need to go. Kit here is very clearly playing with the fact that Laurana is just fully and totally unable to reconcile or be objective about Tanis.
That's what Kit assumes. Like, Kit is totally disrespecting Laurana as a person. She still thinks that Laurana is just like a lovesick girl, which is why she thinks this will work. It just sucks that it does work.
Yeah, right?
For like this one scene, Laurana is this naive, lovesick, useless girl.
It's really frustrating that this is the scene that they chose.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Like, at least they acknowledge it. So, but we're going to move forward and we're going to see where that goes from here. But that is the end of chapter 1 of book 2 of Spring Dawning.
Yeah, next month we'll start with book 2, chapter 2, The Penalty of Failure.
Yeah. But before we go, we've got one more thing to talk about, the fun or weirdo things we've been doing outside of our time with Dragonlance. Lately, I just finished reading a brand new book that came out that's a very popular book in Japan that was just recently translated into English and also released on Netflix as a drama that covers this story, basically like a single season crime story. It's called Tokyo Swindlers by Ko Shinjo. This is a really, really sick book. It is basically white collar crime. Like this dude, it takes place in Tokyo, and it is telling the story of a guy who is a member of a gang that does real estate fraud. As in, they pretend to be like, representing old rich people or old people with like very expensive land. And then they sell it to developers or to companies or to people and con them out of like billions and billions of yen, and then ditch before like they discover that, oh, this wasn't our land to sell, let alone your land to buy. You would never think that something that bland would be riveting, but it's a really riveting case. There's like an old detective who's just retired, who's been trying to chase down the head of this gang for a long time. And there's a lot of just shenanigans, and it's a very fast read and a very good read. Really, really fun book.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Because of Dragonlance, because of D&D, we've mentioned it before, Vancian magic.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up Tales of the Dying Earth by Jack Vance.
Ooh.
It's a big omnibus of like the collected Tales of the Dying Earth. And I went in thinking, oh, this is going to be all about wizards and magic. And there is magic and there are wizards, but he spends zero time describing like how the magic works. In the very first story, as like a couple throwaway lines, he talks about how this one wizard is able to cram like 2 or 3 spells into his brain. And any more than that, like, would exhaust him, right? And when he uses them, he forgets.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the stories are just like, they're really quite humorous.
Yeah.
And they're just like travelogues. They're adventure stories. They're not high fantasy. They're kind of not even fantasy. They have magic, but it doesn't play a huge role. They're just like travelogues.
Yeah.
In a different world. So I've really been enjoying them. I'm near the end here. But what I thought Dying Earth was shaped by
what it became, right?
The magic system of D&D, and like, oh, that's what it's going to be all about, like needing like spell items. And nope, it's a very, very, very tiny part of quite good adventure tales.
Did you know Jack Vance is from San Francisco and died in Oakland?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's like a Bay Area kid, which is really cool. His stories are more like Jack London stories than like fantasy stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because he was a golden age sci-fi writer, writing in like the 40s and 50s. His first story was in 45. And so, yeah, it's very much like effectively fantasy versions of stories of his work during the Merchant Marines during the World War II. He used to publish in like pulp magazines and things like that. So there was like, when he was writing, there was so little in the sense of what fantasy and sci-fi was that like, yeah, like he would basically retelling 1920s and 30s pulp stories of like adventures and things like that, but with weird futuristic lands and futuristic kind of like sci-fi worlds that are like, they have dragons, but they're basically dinosaurs with wings or whatever,
Yeah. It's been great. It talks of like an overworld and an underworld, and there's demons and stuff, but then there's also like ancient towns and flying cars.
Yeah.
And people who don't understand the technology around them, right? Because the whole point is that this is millions and millions of years in the future. And the sun it's called a dying earth because the sun is like a tiny red or a giant red orb. And all the people who live, they're humans and non-humans and semi-humans, but they all realize that like, here we are, the sun is going to die at some point.
Yeah. Basically, he wrote detective stories and mysteries and like adventure stories, but just had a fantasy flavor to them.
Yeah. It's been good.
Yeah. The thing is, that one line of like, oh yeah, this wizard had spells in his head and forgot them is one of the most influential lines in all of fantasy, because that basically created the entire, from that one sentence, we get this huge epic
system.
Like, you should also read Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser if you get the chance to see the other books that really inspired what D&D became.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, they're really good too.
Who wrote those?
It was by Fritz Lieber.
I've read a bunch of Michael Moorcock.
Yeah, I've read Moorcock as well, because like I think those are like the 3 real, like, and that and like, Jules Verne.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna pick like the 4 books that are like fundamental to what D&D is, Fafhrd and Grey Mouser, the Conan stories, Jack Vance, Jules Verne, Michael Moorcock,
and Token.
Obviously Tolkien. But yeah.
That's my one more thing is Tales of the Dying Earth by Jack Vance.
Yeah, it's a good book. Cool. But with that, we will see you next time on the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast.
As always, you can find our Blue Sky accounts, Discord, Facebook group, as well as details on the Patreon and everything in the show notes. Bye.
Are you touching something?
No.
You were like tapping something.
Okay, I'll stop.
So I'm going to do that again.
I'm not moving at all now.
No, start over. Because you ran right into that, and that's going to be bitch to edit.
Oh.
What's the word I'm looking for?
You're dying there.